second day of the Saftu elective Congress is set to get underway this morning. This is where the issue of the suspension of 4 national office bearers will be put to a vote by delegates. Yesterday, the absence of suspended President Mark Shabalala and 3 others dominated discussions in a plenary with Federation's largest affiliates, NUMSA, pushing for them to actually be reinstated. At the same time, the current General Secretary, Ziyanda, is under fire with the Metal Workers Union, expected to push for his removal. Newzroom Afrika's politics reporter, Ngcobo, is watching the machinations. Live to us there from Boksburg. And Ziyanda, I wonder how optimistic we can be that there'll be any kind of way forward today, in a context yesterday where, quite frankly, there was even disagreements about who is meant to speak first.
Absolutely, Ziyanda. And in fact, as a result of us even being able to broadcast that, at some stage there was a push to actually have a closed session, and that's actually where our journey with this conference ended late last night. There was a closed session to discuss then this issue of the national office bearers, after there was also a significant amount of time, Ziyanda, being spent on the issue of the reinstatement of these office bearers being put at the top of the agenda as opposed to being later, because the argument that was being pushed by NUMSA here was to say that these 4 office bearers could also stand for election, and so they need to discuss this issue of their reinstatement as soon as possible. And we know that NUMSA is planning to have Mark Shabalala, the suspended president of Saftu, return to his position. It's also part of the reason why, Ziyanda, that there's this discontent with the current General Secretary, Ziyanda, who some believe was incorrect for having these 4 national office bearers suspended. But this was also just after Vavi himself had received a letter of intent rather to suspend him. The second issue that was also going to be discussed then was, the issue of who should be giving a message of support. And Mbazi Mashilowa is one of those who has been placed on the program to do that. That matter was finally resolved. But another issue, Ziyanda, was to discuss whether or not the suspension was in line with the Saftu constitution, and that's where this Congress is today. In fact, I was told by sources this morning that, the issue of the 4 national office bearers reached such a head that this morning we expected that the matter will be now put to a vote.
Sure. It makes you wonder at which stage, if ever, Ziyanda, we're going to get around to discussing workers' issues.
That is just the tragedy of what we're seeing here. This federation is relatively young when you compare it to COSATU. And interesting that, at their first Congress, they had Jay Naidu, one of the founders of COSATU, and Mbazi Mashilowa, who's a former General Secretary of COSATU, coming to speak here, because I think there are critical lessons that need to be learned here when it comes to creating a culture where you won't be influenced by political parties. And this is what they pledged at their first Congress. And yet here, whilst there isn't necessarily influence from political parties, it's understood that one of the issues is also around then the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party, and whether or not it should, form part of Saftu, or whether or not it should be aligned to other political parties, given the fact that this particular federation had taken an oath that it would be free from the politics so that it could focus on the issues of workers. And that you also have now, Ziyanda, the issue of leadership squabbles that are actually taking up and dominating then the Congress at this particular point in time. The context within which South Africans find themselves with, in particular the workers' voice, it's not coming through. It has not come through, least of all on the first day of this Congress.
Yeah, hopefully a whole lot more of a productive session, let's put it that way, Ziyanda, as day 2 gets underway today. For now, thanks very much indeed for that update. Ziyanda Ngcobo, our politics reporter, live to us there from Boksburg.